Stand by to initiate release sequencer. On my mark. 5.
We're on express elevator to hell. Going down.
2. 1. Mark.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark, a.k.a. Derringer. Today is Sunday, November 26th, and you are listening to episode 133 of the Instant Action Podcast, your weekly source for Planetside 2 news and information. As always, I'm brought to you by great listeners like you via the Support the Show tab on instantactionpodcast.com. So before we jump right into this week's show, I just wanted to remind everyone about my Amazon link in case you are doing any Christmas shopping, holiday shopping, etc. Obviously, you'll be listening to this show on most likely Cyber Monday, quote unquote Cyber Monday. So I'm going to make sure to include a link to my Amazon link within the show notes this week and maybe in the main display, so it's clickable for everything that you're looking at. And I encourage you and beg you to go and use that when you're purchasing stuff at Amazon. Obviously, on Cyber Monday, there's going to be a lot of great stuff on the Amazon site. Newegg is going to have a lot of great stuff as well. But Amazon is the best one, obviously, for me because, as I've said in the past, using my link on Amazon gives me a small percentage of whatever you buy. Usually it's less than 4% of the purchase price of whatever you buy. But as most people are going to be doing a lot of holiday shopping in the next coming weeks, days, weeks, whatever, it's huge this time of year for you to go and use my Amazon link. And this honestly is where I make the majority of the quote unquote donations into the show each year to help pay for server costs. Obviously, server costs don't come up until May, so there's still quite a bit of time before I actually have to renew. But again, this is where I need your support more than anything else. So again, I will make sure to include the Amazon link. You don't have to do anything except click the link and do your shopping as normally. It can't already be in your cart prior to hitting the link. But again, just go use my link. Go over to Amazon, do your shopping as normally. When you check out, the price isn't going to change or anything like that. But again, Amazon is going to give me a small taste of whatever you spend. And obviously, I know during the holiday season is when people spend the majority of their money. So again, last year was a good year. I'm hoping that this year is going to be an equally good year. And in advance, thank you very much. Other than that, what's been going on for me? Obviously, I've been playing a lot of Destiny, but I have been playing a bunch of Planetside 2 as well. A lot of VS play recently. The funny thing I've noticed is that my VS character is the Derringer, and I seem to get recognized a lot more on my VS character than I do on my NC character. And I'm thinking it's probably because my NC character is named Yes, I Am That Derringer. And a lot of people call me Yeslum and things like that, which is kind of silly. Whereas, like I said, VS character is the Derringer. My TR character is Derringer TR. I think maybe it's time to spend that $25, which I don't want to do, on a name change token and maybe change my NC character to something closer to just Derringer or some such. Maybe I'll get recognized a bit more. Yeah, like I said, this past Friday I was playing. I logged in for a couple minutes and immediately someone in Yell Chat that I had killed, who after they stepped on one of my proxy mines, said, "Are you the podcast guy?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's definitely me." So I'm thinking maybe again it's time to rebrand that new conglomerate character into a more Derringer-ish name because I love getting recognized in game. Other than that, like I said, played a lot Friday because of and Saturday too because of the 4X member experience. And yes, you heard that correctly. I took advantage of the 4 times member XP weekend because I did re-up my membership, and a lot of it was because of the response that I got from the folks over at Daybreak Games. I got some personal messages from some of the people over there. We chatted about some stuff that I talked about in the last show, or the show prior to the last show. And just, I like the direction and the response that they made to the kind of negative show that I threw out there a couple weeks ago. If there had been no response to it, I probably would have stayed pat. But because there actually was a response, and I felt that they had their heads down so much working on the anniversary bundle that they kind of overlooked some of this other stuff and didn't realize what was going on, and were kind of blindsided by the community's response to it. And I feel that they're being genuine in that response, and therefore I felt that it was my duty to once again re-up my membership with Planetside 2. Granted, I'm just one small fish in the large pond that is the world of Araxis, but I do feel like I'm doing my part. I also did purchase the Commander's bundle for the anniversary event, and yeah, it was kind of hurt my wallet to purchase $85 worth of Daybreak cash. I don't think I've ever purchased that amount of Daybreak cash before. Obviously, $85 US gets you 10,000 Daybreak cash, and that's the smallest denomination. Well, I guess you probably could have bought a 5,000 and a 3,000, or a 5,000 and a couple 1,000s, but I think it's much more worth it to just purchase the $85 and get the full 10,000. So that's what I did to allow me to purchase that Commander's bundle. Now, I'm a little disappointed that it looks like on the PC side, the Warbringer title isn't carrying over to all accounts, but I know that that'll get fixed a little bit down the road, so I'm not too concerned about that. But I wanted to unlock everything, and I got some implants that I didn't have because of it, which I won't say that I use them all the time, but it was nice to get some implants that I didn't have on at least one of my characters. And the 12-month boost alone, that felt like it was worth it in the long run to me. And again, as a member, it only cost me 8,099 Daybreak cash. So I do still have, a couple thousand Daybreak cash sitting over as well, or carrying over as well, that maybe I can pump into other things within the game. Dooku's submachine guns immediately come to mind as something I'm probably going to be picking up when they actually come live, and all the other guns that he's coming out with as well. And maybe there still will be a Derringer pistol sometime down the road, since if you guys follow on Twitter, you know that Rel mentioned the Derringer pistol, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it was mentioned, so it's not like that's a dead thing either. And I've still got my hopes up that someday I will see something named after me in the game that I love the most. But enough talk about me. What is actually in store for this week's show? Well, first I have a PC game update to talk about, followed by a PS4 game update and a PS4 hotfix. And then after that, I want to go over last Monday's dev live stream and finish up ultimately with some bounty talk. So strap in as we hot drop into another episode of the Instant Action Podcast. All right, into the meat of the show itself, and starting off with first item, November 20th PC game update. In addition to getting the 5th anniversary bundles released into the game, there were also a whole bunch of other little additions, and I went over them. I think I went over every single one of them on last week's show. So I'm just going to blitz through them at this point just to let you know what actually did come to life, because again, last week I talked about a PTS update, and this week I'm talking about a game update, and pretty much everything that hit the PTS also came live into the game about a week later. So very little testing on this, which is kind of concerning to some. I I don't think it brought any really huge game-breaking issues. I mean, yes, obviously when this game update went live, people experienced tons of issues with zone crashes and stuff like that, and by the time the dev live stream happened later in that day, everything had been fixed and was back to normal. People were able to log back in again, and there weren't many issues. But yeah, the age-old adage, do not play on patch day, certainly held true this particular week based on this particular game update itself. But we did get some UI and quality of life improvements. We got the generator timers no longer overlay the icon on the HUD. Nanocycler lets you filter your implants. Alert timers now only appear on the HUD and tab menu. You can now select the world map from the map drop-down. You couldn't do that before. ISO is tracked on the mini-map, on your tab screen and on your loadout screens, even though I do believe that they've reverted that ISO being tracked on the mini-map itself. Quick deploy itself is disabled if there's more than 60% allied population in the region. I ran into this constantly when I was playing on Friday. It doesn't mean I couldn't still redeploy at the place that I was redeploying, but I couldn't just hit the E key automatically to quickly redeploy there. Capture points that can't be captured are shown on the HUD and minimap with padlocks over them. I do like this, but I do wish that friendly ones that you owned didn't have a padlock over them. It kind of seems like I don't need to know that. I kind of only need to know that on ones that I need to actually capture. I don't know if that's enough of a complaint for that to be added into the game itself, but that's my 2 cents on this particular one. Clicking the boost slot from a loadout window takes you to the boost window. I actually use this to activate my 12-month heroic boost, so I can tell you it definitely works. Region population is now displayed on the expanded minimap, so if you press H and blow out the map itself, you will see the percentage of the region population, which was kind of interesting. You can now click on usernames in the most recent line of chat, and the chat window will no longer disappear when the text field has focus. Again, those are just the UI and quality of life improvements themselves. Next, for the meta, Sunderers can no longer deploy in no-deployed regions of allied bases. I know this was a big complaint after it went live to the people that I know and play with that like to put Sunderers inside tech plants and things like that, because now you can't deploy as much in places like that. But the 1,000 meter squad beacon respawn limitation has been removed from the game. I took a lot of advantage of this when playing on Friday. Next, implants, and here's something I didn't talk about last week that I do want to talk about this week, is because 3 new implants have been added to the drop table. Also, in addition to that, any class-specific implants have had their drop rates increased. So when you open those packs, you should see more of the class-specific implants coming to you, because I think that's one of the bigger complaints that people had, is that they've got all the basic ones, but they're still trying to unlock 1 or 2 of the class-specific ones that they haven't gotten yet. And we won't even talk about the exceptional ones because those are on their own separate table altogether. So first one is the Assassin implant, and killing targets gives a % chance to clear your marker while you're spotted, and headshots will always clear your marker. And if you advance this up to rank 5, if you deal damage while that implant is on, it's going to automatically spot your target for you. Kind of a cool one. Next is Overdrive, and getting road kills while in the pilot seat of a vehicle will restore your turbo fuel for flashes and harassers. If you max this out to rank 5, it also applies to Liberators and Empire-specific fighters turbo boost as well. And finally, the Logistics Specialist. This one's actually an exceptional implant, but while in the pilot seat of a vehicle, any vehicle with an open seat will now become a squad spawn point. So this is actually a big one that I know a lot of platoon and squad leaders are really trying to get this particular one. I know Robo from Goater was talking about this one a lot, and I know there's quite a few other people that want to get this exceptional implant. I think everybody should get this exceptional implant, especially if you become a squad leader for any reason. Next, moving on to vehicle adjustments. We know the Dalton got some damage increases. We know the Zephyr had some damage, some cone of fire velocity and recoil rate increases. The Duster had a cone of fire adjustment. The Tank Buster had its max damage increased. Moving on to the ESF, it had some resistance changes, mostly to the air-to-ground warhead adjustments. Also, moving on, the Gatekeeper on the Prowler and the Harasser had its cone of fire change to tighten it up and move out the effective range. Again, all these things I covered on last week's show, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about them again. The Mjolnir had its direct damage increased, and honestly, on live, a lot of people are saying the Mjolnir is a little bit overpowered right now. I wouldn't be surprised after using it myself, feeling that it's tuned a little bit high, that we might see this pull back a little bit on its direct damage. Next, the Spear Phalanx turret also had its direct damage and inner blast damage both increased. And then moving on to infantry adjustments, the AV Mana turret had its resistances tuned a little bit to bring it closer in line with the type of resistances they get from infantry rocket launchers. Other than that, there's some other miscellaneous changes and fixes that came in. Biggest one, vehicles no longer flipping when using remote vehicle spawning. I have not had a flipped over vehicle since this update went live, so I think that probably that one is fixed. Also, tanks flipping from an invisible second turret spawning with them. That one seems to have been fixed as well. Along with a whole bunch of other little bug fixes and other things that were corrected within the game itself. Again, that covers the November 24th PC game update in a nutshell. And again, I know I kind of burned through a lot of the vehicle adjustments pretty quickly, but again, I talked about them a little bit more in depth on last week's show. But with that, let's move on to our next round of game updates. And as I said at the start of the show, these game updates affected the PlayStation 4 version of Planetside 2. I know it's been a while since you guys actually saw some sort of game update. Obviously, you guys got the anniversary bundles unlocked, just like the PC folks did. And you also got one small miscellaneous change added with the November 20th PS4 game update. And this was that hard light barriers should now no longer be able to be placed in front of spawn tubes. I know this was a huge complaint on the PS4 side of the game, where an engineer would drop a hard light barrier right in front of the spawn tube, and then no one would be able to get out of that spawn tube. So that has been fixed on the PS4. Again, other than the anniversary bundles being put in the game, that was the only other change on November 20th. But on the 22nd, there was a hotfix because the PS4 folks did not get access to purchase the Commander bundle. And the reason that you guys couldn't purchase the Commander bundle is because of the 9 basic implant packs and the exceptional implants that you get as part of this bundle. Since implants have not gone live on the PlayStation 4 yet, you can't kind of get basic implant packs as a result. So what they've done is they have temporarily removed those from the bundle. And in December, when they feel that they're going to activate the implant system on the PlayStation 4, any players that have purchased the Commander bundle will be granted those 9 basic implants as when you actually purchase the bundle itself. So don't worry, you can still purchase it. And I believe everybody has until November 30th on both the PC and the PS4 to purchase those bundles before they actually go away. Now, also in this hotfix, they want to note that the Warbringer title is currently only being granted to the character who purchased the Commander's bundle. They'll be issuing account-wide grants when the sale of the Commander's bundle has actually ended. And I'm assuming this also relates to the PC side, because like I said, I could not find my Warbringer title on my NC character. It's only available on my VS. So I'm hoping that the same thing is going to be happening on the PC side as well. And then finally, anniversary weapon directives now show up properly on the PS4. They did not initially when that was launched. So not huge game updates for the PS4. Mostly it was just so you could buy stuff. But in the next topic, we'll actually talk a bit more about PS4. So let's move on to that right now. And that third topic this week is the November 20th dev live stream on Twitch. Now, I did not get to watch this live. I can't remember what happened that particular day. Well, it started at 5 p.m. Eastern, and I get out of work at 5 p.m. Eastern, so I would have been driving home anyways. And if I recall, I had to make a stop at the grocery store or something for dinner that particular night. So by the time I got home and everything was all said and done, the live stream had actually ended. So I took advantage on Tuesday, and while I was at work, just streamed it on my phone, the replay of it, so that I could see and hear about everything that I had missed the previous day. And really the only thing that I missed was a chance to win one of the bundles that they gave away, because they gave away one Initiates bundle, one Soldiers bundle, and two Commanders bundles. So I did miss out on a chance to get those, but it's not that big a deal. There were like 1,000 plus people watching the stream. So honestly, the odds of even winning it then were pretty low. But I probably would have given away the code if they had given me one anyways. But let's talk about the live stream itself for a few. So the stream opened with Rel, with Paul Giaggio, and with Nick Silva all talking about what was added to Planetside 2 this year, or in their 5th year of operation. They added orbital strikes. They revamped the implant system. They revamped both Indar and Amerish. They added a construction accessible base. They added the meltdown alerts and the first iteration of the Combined Arms Initiative. And other than that, they did lots and lots and lots of various balance adjustments within the game itself throughout that year. So as you can see, it's not like they were sitting around doing nothing to the game itself. They certainly added a whole bunch of different things to the game itself. After that, they spent some time talking about the Reddit AMA that had gone on the previous week. They got about 1,400 comments or questions. So based on this particular Reddit AMA, they plan to do them more often because they felt it gives a very good pulse of what the player base or user base feels or is on their minds at a particular time. If I was them, I would probably do either twice a year AMAs or quarterly AMAs. Like they said, it's a good way to get the pulse of what the player base is thinking at any particular time. I thought the AMA was good. As I said, I felt that it fell short in a couple of areas, but overall, it's better to do one than to not do anything. Paul said that they spent about 4 to 5 hours in the AMA answering questions, and it was only about a 2-hour-long AMA, if I recall. So for them to go beyond that is not too bad, showing that they wanted to answer as many questions as they could. They also did point out that in the future, while super long posts that ask a lot of questions in one post are good, and they like to see those, they feel that they're very hard to respond to. So they're hoping that next time they do an AMA, that there can be more concise posts, because those are the ones that are going to get the best answers. So, I mean, if you want to ask 10 questions in one, be prepared to only get 2 or 3 of them answered by one person, and then maybe 1 or 2 by another person, or only a couple answered here and there. The posts that ask just one particular question or make one particular point are clearly going to be the ones that get discussed and answered the most. Rel pointed out that the Combined Arms Initiative was the most discussed topic in the AMA, as expected. And I know a lot of people felt that they kind of danced around answering all the questions regarding it, but they did give some information regarding Combined Arms and what they think about it and what's coming in the future. Next, Nick responded to the complaints coming from the Connery server, and he did say the Chinese situation, but I know that's kind of he doesn't like that term being used. He's used foreign before, things like that. But they're actually investigating opening a Tokyo-based server for Planetside 2. And obviously what that would do would allow anybody in the Asian region to play in a Tokyo-based server, which would be local to them and would kind of break away from that lag wizard mentality that a lot of Connery players have based on the foreign players playing there. But of course, that announcement comes with the caveat that there are no promises that something like that will ever happen. They really want it to, though. The tough part, or the sticking point at this particular time and point, is doing server transfers. Because obviously, if you've got a lot of people playing on Connery and they have established characters, it's not fair to just kind of turn them, tell them there's a new server and force them to go play there, because in all honesty, a lot of them won't, because they've already got their established characters on the Connery server. Now, if they open up some sort of server transfer and one-time free transfer off of Connery onto their Tokyo server, and a lot more people would actually take advantage of that. So that is the correct way to do it. But as Nick said, the database team is completely separate from every other team within Daybreak Games, and it handles all of their games, not just Planetside 2. So unfortunately, it's not an easy thing to do, but from what they're saying, they want this to happen, because obviously they want to make their Connery players happy, and they also want to make players in China or Asia, anywhere in that area, also happy, because that'll make their ping so much better also and give them a better experience within the game itself. So I definitely have my fingers crossed that they get this Tokyo server on board, and not just because I know a lot of people that play on Connery that are fed up. Next, Nick also talked about lore in Planetside 2, and that they want to kind of develop a Planetside 2 quote-unquote Bible for the lore itself. They talked a lot about the community lore. They gave a shout-out to Eclectic Drek, who I interviewed on the show earlier this year about the lore that he's doing. But basically, look for them to be adding more lore in the future to the game itself, and not just community-driven lore. And at the end, they said again that they plan to do more of these AMAs in the future. Next, they took the time to show off the actual anniversary bundles, showed the camos, the obsidian trims on the vehicles, the various decals you get, all kinds of stuff like that. And then they actually gave some of them away. Quite amusingly, when they actually talked about the PS4 news, they gave away one. And who do you think the winner was of that? Sevarm Knight, who is somebody who's very active on the PS4, PS2 subreddit. So congrats to you, Sevarm Knight, on that. But before they got to the PS4 stuff, they actually Paul Giaggio stepped away, and they introduced the new UI programmer, whose name is Zach Antoine. And we know he was answering some questions on the Reddit AMA that we talked about last week. They did announce that he had been hired at the end of September. He did state that he plays Vanu Sovereignty pretty much exclusively, so get your hate in for that now. Prior to Daybreak Games, he did Flash and ActionScript on the side at college, and that kind of gave him a unique set of skills that people are looking for that maybe not a lot of people do anymore. And prior to coming to Daybreak Games, he did mostly contract work, but they did say that this is not a contract position for him at Daybreak Games. He is actually a full-time hire within the game itself. They didn't say whether he's doing just Planetside 2 or other games as well, so I can't answer that particular question. And ultimately, he works more on the functionality side of the user interface rather than the design side of itself. So he's the one underneath. When you actually click on a button, it does what it's supposed to do. So welcome aboard, Zach Antoine. I know a lot of people are happy that you are working for Daybreak Games and especially on Planetside 2 currently. Next, Nick kind of threw a curveball at Rel and asked if there were any plans for Coal Tier. And Rel did say that while there's no plans for a new continent again, that they are looking into using both the assets for Coal Tier differently and potentially also the Battle Island Nexus differently than it is currently in 2018. And again, this makes me hope that they're going to start releasing these two areas for people to play on. And there's something I'm going to talk about a little later in the live stream, and I'll tie it back to Coal Tier and Nexus. But after that, like I said, they moved on to some PlayStation 4 news, and Nick showed off that the implant system is working on the PlayStation 4, but it is just not live yet. Really, the only issue that's holding them back currently is that you can't see the implants that you actually receive when you purchase them. You just get the congratulations banner popping up, unlike on PC where you actually get it. It shows you every single one that pops out. So they're obviously working on getting that corrected. And they're also going to be releasing the meltdown alerts at the exact same time that they're going to be releasing the implants. So while they're continuing to work out some things with the meltdown alerts, they have some time to fix this implant issue until it actually gets released. So they didn't say when this was going to be released, but obviously, as I said earlier, they're talking about releasing it in December. So as we move into next month, look for a big PlayStation 4 game update to talk about on the Instant Action podcast. Next, they teased, or Rel said something about a Nanite appreciation sale in February. And based on their back and forth comments about it, it sounds like if you miss out on purchasing the 5th anniversary bundle by the 30th, that you're going to be able to purchase it again. And again, this was because they acknowledged that they were having some issues with the Commander bundle on that particular day, on Monday, which obviously we know they fixed that by the 22nd. But since we're kind of going back in time at this point, they did tease a Nanite appreciation sale. So kind of interesting to see what that's going to be in February. After that, they previewed the Doku SMGs and also showed off the images of all the other weapons that Doku has put together. And Rel specifically stated that after the SMGs are finalized and pushed out, LMGs will be the next batch. And he did specifically say that we're going to get a Torque version of an LMG, so look forward to that. Rel also, after that, confirmed that we are going to get Araximus in December, and most likely the old anniversary bundles that you didn't get to purchase in previous years will most likely be available during the weekends again in December. But in addition to that, they are revamping the holiday directive altogether. So look forward to that coming in December. And they said they're going to have another dev live stream in December specifically to show off all these changes that they've made to the holiday directive. And Rel tongue-in-cheek said, don't expect knife or flash-based directives this time around, because obviously people were pretty sick of them after the holiday directive. I know that I certainly was. After that, they said, well, what are we working on for next year? Next year, first off, they're putting together something that Rel called unstable warp gates. And what this is going to do is make an off-continent accessible for people to fight on. And it's going to have some looser pop balance restrictions. You won't be able to trigger a critical mass alert on that continent itself. And they're actually going to restrict the number of open regions by the number of players, giving you really specific lanes with which to actually fight in. And then once enough players actually go to the continent itself, the continent is going to unlock completely over again. Kind of an interesting way to add some more play to the game, especially when you have a critical mass update going. You can't get on continent. One faction's running away with it, and everybody's getting discouraged. So good to see that they're trying to work on something to fix that particular gripe of players within the game itself. After that, Rel said their big focus next year is going to be on outfit play, squad play, and leadership. So they really want regional territory to be more important than it currently is. They want to focus on outfit progression and even outfit tech trees. They also want to reward leadership specifically because they haven't done enough with that. And they want more prominence within the game for outfits. They also want to work on the new player experience and really revise the current tutorials that are in the game itself, because honestly, since the last tutorials have come out, a lot of things have changed. After that, they did a quick little Q&A with some talk about competitive play, how they're not going to be doing their own events, but will happily promote existing events. Someone else asked about sanctuaries, and they're kind of in limbo at this point. But Nick does want a social hub for players to interact and also give Daybreak Games a chance to tell some lore about the game in these social hubs. Rel said he really likes some of the other social hubs that other games like Destiny 2 has put together, and they'd like to do something similar, but no guarantees that something like that makes it to live. After that, they talked about what's coming in the patches, about fixing the various bugs that I talked about earlier. Rel glossed over the Liberator buffs briefly, saying there's more to come after that. Then they really hyped the 4 times experience day coming on this past Friday that I took advantage of. They also talked about some of the wacky math that the 4 times experience day is providing, where basically every 100 XP you would normally earn, you're earning 600 due to getting 50% bonuses and then another 50% on top of that. I don't have time to figure out the math, but I'm sure somebody can. I mean, I can tell you that during the 4 times experience membership, I think I got as high as plus 1,132%, some weird number like that. And I know some people were saying they were getting to 1,200%, 1,300%, some really insane numbers. And then lastly, at the end, they said happy anniversary, but I was happy to hear Nick say that he had listened to last week's podcast and my happy birthday instead of happy anniversary comment. So nice to get a little shout out at the end of the show. And it's good to hear that the devs are listening to my little world within the game itself. So that wraps up the dev live stream in a nutshell. So excited that they did a dev live stream. And again, this just goes further to my point at the beginning of the show. A reason that I re-upped my membership is because it shows that even though they were kind of heads down for about a month, not really promoting stuff, not really talking about stuff, that there was a lot of stuff going on underneath the hood, and that they're willing to kind of bite the bullet on that and say, hey, we kind of screwed up. Here's an AMA, here's a dev live stream, all kinds of stuff like that. We do care about our community. And it's, again, another reason why I was more than happy to re-up my membership within the game itself. But with that, let's move on to our 4th topic this week. And the 4th topic is about bounties, because there was a little bit of a shitstorm within the game itself when people found out that with the patch, bounties were also turned off kind of clandestinely within the game itself. There was no announcement that this was happening. I talked with some of the developers, and I don't know if it was supposed to be in there or not. Because I was just trying to confirm that bounties were definitely off and that wasn't a bug or anything like that. And sure enough, it was not a bug. And Nick Silva kind of took responsibility for this one and wrote, sorry for the subterfuge on this change. I made the call to keep it secret. This was turned off so we didn't have to cancel the quadruple XP day. I didn't want some people to read the notes, know the change was coming, and purchase a ton of bounties on an alt character. Bounties will be turned back on next week. Now, I know a lot of people said that this was a scummy move by Daybreak Games by not announcing this, but I don't think that it was scummy at all, because when you sit down and think about it, if bounties had been on during the 4 times experience, day, which was Friday, which actually turned into 2 days because it went into Saturday as well. Someone could have had two boosts going, 2 1 day, or a 1 day and like me, I had a 1 day going and a 12-month going at the same time. You could have put that bounty on and had, plus 1,200% experience, and you would have actually earned more certs after the bounty was claimed than it cost to actually place the bounty on someone. So there'd really be no reason not to spend certs and buy 99 bounties on a particular person, the most that you can buy, because you would receive way more back than what you spent. So not only would you be gaining tons of levels from the experience, but you'd be gaining tons of certs. And this would be game breaking. And as I said on the Reddit post announcing this, if it had gone live, the cries that Planetside 2 is pay to win would have turned this into even more of a shitstorm than it actually was. So I'm glad that they turned it off. And reading Nick's response, I'm happy he said what he did, because he's absolutely right. Someone could create a character, play the game for, a little while, get killed a bunch, and place a whole ton of bounties on people, and then log out, and then not log in again until Friday when the 4 times XP is going to go live. And then when you log in the first time, that's when all your bounties are going to be claimed. You're going to get all that experience from the bounties, and it's going to be multiplied. So by them turning it off on Monday and not saying anything, no one was able to do that I am aware of. So kind of a good idea for them to keep it secret. Did it kind of make me upset? Sure, because I wanted to take advantage of it. I was all set to take advantage of it. I also think that they could have done it a little bit different, and I think that somebody else, White Forest, mentioned this on the Reddit post about this, and while I thought about it, it was kind of a good idea. He said, why don't you add it just for Daybreak Cash, make people spend the money on it? But that goes back again to my pay-to-win shitstorm, because a lot of people would complain that it was enabling pay-to-win within the game itself. So even though that might have earned Daybreak Games a lot of money by people buying Daybreak Cash to place bounties, I think ultimately in the end they made the correct decision in turning off bounties during the 4 times experience membership event Friday, and as it pushed on into Saturday itself. So that's the kind of bad thing that happened within Planetside 2 this past week. Other than that, I think everything that happened this past week with the anniversary event, the live stream, the AMA previous to that, a lot of good interaction with the devs over at Planetside 2, and I think everything more than outweighed the kind of bounty shitstorm that happened midweek. But with that, let's close out this week's show and move on to housekeeping.
Housekeeping. Housekeeping.
Come back later, please.
Housekeeping.
Not now.
Housekeeping.
Go away.
I coming anyway?
And I did get a couple emails this week. The first one is from Matt9, and he says, thanks for another great podcast. It's been a fun week of playing Planetside 2. I did notice that Daybreak disabled bounties for the week, a means to mitigate my eventual climb to 120. I appreciate your weekly look into PS2 news and insight about what is coming. Thanks for doing it. Yeah, Matt9, like I said, I covered that bounties issue on the previous topic. But again, thank you for being a loyal listener, and thanks for sending the email in. Next up, I got an email from Louis as well. Louis's been quiet recently, but he wrote, why do you think DBG isn't doing anything about ammo stat patterns? You would think it would be easy to ban the abusers or limit the ammo XP per hour of the day. I agree with you on this one. It's a topic that I didn't go over, something that came up during the show, came up during the past week, is that some people were getting banned for hitting the experience cap for placing ammo, and they quickly rolled back that ban. Prompt Critical rolled back that ban, those bans, and changed the information for that. But Louis got a point, Clearly, there are ammo stat patterns in the game itself, earning tons of certs, doing absolutely nothing just by throwing ammo. I think it should be easy for them to ban the abusers and specifically limit ammo XP per hour or day or week or anything. And I'm not sure particularly why Daybreak Games isn't doing more to kind of ban those particular people. I imagine during this past week with the bonus experience that these stat patterns were probably out in force getting as many certs as humanly possible during this particular time. So I don't have an answer for that, Louis, and maybe Daybreak Games will in the future. But again, thank you for sending in that email. With that, though, that's going to be it for this week's show. As always, how can you get in touch with me or the show itself? Well, first, as always, visit my website, www.instantactionpodcast.com. You can find all my shows there. In addition, you can find my support the show link. You can go on and use my Amazon link through there if you forget it or don't know what it is. Lots of ways to get in touch with me via the website as well. You can also email me like Matt and I and Louis did, instantactionshow@gmail.com. If you send me an email, I'm going to read it. You can call me and leave me a voicemail at 347-4VM-4PS2. That number again, 347-486-4772. You can also follow the show on Twitter at InstactPodcast or me personally on Twitter at The Derringer. But as always, in closing, if you've enjoyed the show, please leave me a review on your podcast listening avenue of choice, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere else. Also, feel free to tell your friends and outfit mates about the show. And finally, thanks for listening, and keep spamming that Join Combat, formerly known as Instant Action button.